South Africa as a prime investment destination of choice, and also to outline the country's domestic and foreign policy goals and priorities. These included the land reform program aimed at fostering greater stability, inclusivity and transformation within the economy. We look into some of the insights on the President's objectives and priorities as forecast on prospects for their achievement.
Yesterday I heard the Foreign Affairs Minister, Public International Relations, Lindiwe Sisulu, say that overall she felt that Mission South Africa to the UN was a huge success. Your take? You were there?
They have reasons to celebrate. On arrival, the President had a meeting with the Director, UN Women, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, who in this case is also seen as an ambassador for South Africa. And I guess lobbying took place there to ensure that perhaps she can also influence the officials at the UN to support Team South Africa. And indeed, during the unveiling of Mandela statue, you saw a number of UN officials, including some politicians, attending the unveiling. And also the Secretary General was there of the UN, Antonio Guterres. And then the next thing was President Ramaphosa was supposed to speak on Wednesday, but he was able to be moved to Tuesday, which was a prime slot in a sense, because that's where you have your main countries speaking on the first day. And secondly, it was a prime spot in terms of time as well, because it was around 2 o'clock, I think, US time, and here home it was in the evening when everybody's watching television. So we're able to take him live, and even the international networks, they were able to tap into his speech, and that was a success in that many people did cover his speech, different newspapers and broadcasters. The last issue is around him meeting business. The Bloomberg gathering, he was there. He was able to share his thoughts in terms of the economic challenges the country is facing, perhaps responding to certain questions like the land question, the issue of the independence of the Reserve Bank, and perhaps the future of the country. And then 2 engagements the same day with other small group of high influential investors in the US behind closed doors. And then secondly, a broader audience with all the investors, generally even small businesses in the US, to talk about the country. And I think he tried his level best. This was his first appearance at the United Nations, and he was well received. And everywhere the dinner, you see Secretary General ensuring that he's there. I mean, the dinner on Wednesday night, the Secretary General was there to support South Africa. And then lunchtime, he was at the main table with the Secretary General and influential leaders, including Donald Trump.
Yes, of course. Okay, so David, the international media, they've been preoccupied for a long time with our former president, and then there was this change and there was great expectations. Do you think that the international media has been able to capture the new presidency, and what are they saying about this new order?
Well, I think, Peter, the challenge from a media perspective, since this is a media show, so I'll put the politics aside for a second. You know, the difficulty for President Ramaphosa is to break through to the international audience. He did have a prime slot at the UNGA. He hit the notes that you would expect: the land issue, the economy, youth, unemployment, and potential of South Africa. But to break through all the other news that is around us all the time in this day and age is a challenge. He seemed like he managed to do that on the business front, as Sophie was saying, with the round table. But at the same time, given the focus on the land issue, he was presented with the challenge by the soundbite politics that we are living in now, when he said, you know, there is no killing of white farmers in South Africa. Now, there's been a lot of discussion what he meant by that, but that sort of moment does sometimes take away from maybe the strategic objective of the government, which I'm sure was to put on the platform that the land issue from their perspective is going to be managed well and will be done in a constitutional manner. So those who are watching it, who might not be really fully focused internationally on what the President of South Africa is doing at any one time, might just in the corner of mind see that because they know something about the land issue and not get the picture that the government at least is wanting to put forward. And any amount of kind of correction and or explanation after the fact, it's possibly a lost opportunity because of the nature of how the media sometimes focuses on the gaffe, on the mistake from their perspective, rather than on the substance of what the president might have been putting forward.
Yeah. Makosini, your take, was it a mission successful?
I think it was a successful mission, but I think, and I agree with David to a certain extent, that South Africa is facing a huge problem in that actually the ruling party and the DA have abdicated leadership on the discussion of land to smaller parties like the EFF, which is very radical in its tone, but also you have, outfits like BLF,
yes,
and AfriForum, and you get this rhetoric that's laced with racial epithets, and that's worrying for people who are outside. The problem with South Africa, I've said this before, is that since 2009 we've begun to be inward looking. Before we were concerned about how people viewed us as a country, and now we are concerned about ourselves and the issues that we disagree on, and sometimes we disagree to the extent and in a way that makes other people who are not inside the country to think that there could be problems in South Africa. South Africa has the largest number of people of European descent. I think we've got about 5 million, the biggest in all of the continent. All the continent put together do not have the numbers of what. And that is a concern to people sitting in America, to people sitting in the EU. That is a concern for the presidency of Donald Trump, which is finds itself on the side of white nationalism. So I think the way we talk about the land reform program, we must talk about it in such a way that we do not end up losing the message and end up now sounding like we have a race problem in South Africa, which is not true, by the way. It could very well be that the majority of landowners are white, but the majority of white people in South Africa, they just own the land on which their homes are built and maybe where their businesses are, and they wouldn't be affected by, expropriation of land without compensation. So the use of race when you talk about the issue, I think it does worry people inside the country and worry people outside the country. For me, it's about how we communicate this thing. And for President Ramaphosa at the United Nations and other people watching, that could be a problem in that he is not saying much that placates people who are worried about it. Yeah.
David, final word for you on this particular issue. Yes, we're competing for sound bites and so on and so forth. But do you think that the international media understands South Africa, or even making an effort to understand South Africa, or are they also getting caught up kind of with whatever is being thrown out there?
Well, I think it all depends on which media you're speaking about. There is a very broad section of international media here. You've got the global media like CNN, who on our side we have both a mix of the kind of telling the African story from the point of view of the positive stories that are out there, the future of Africa, and then we have also the news side, which has a bit of that, but obviously news often focuses on the more difficult questions that are out there. I think with the Nelson Mandela centenary this year, this is an opportunity for the government, which it has been using to get a renewed focus on the country. But during the years of the previous president, there was an image that South Africa garnered, which is possibly not the image South Africans want out there in the international media. There has been a honeymoon period with Cyril Ramaphosa, the president, that the government has been able to, in some cases, latch onto and get out to the international media. Again, it's about putting your best foot forward, as it were, with the media, and knowing where your strengths are with an audience that isn't necessarily tapped in to the ins and outs. So the land issue may actually be a way, a positive way, but as you said, you know, the middle is often missing, and it's the most extreme voices that get out there.
We are tired and we want people to take action. We want government to take action because women are being raped, women are being killed, women are being sexually and physically abused every day. Children are going missing.
See men at the forefront of this march is what softens the heart and makes us all feel proud of the type of men that we have in our country.
Here, the rates of violence against women and children are alarmingly high. Enough is enough.
On to your sports news this hour. Cape Town City have